All right, folks. Thank you so much for your patience this evening. And thanks for tuning in to tonight's program. My name is Alden Picard. I'm the conservation coordinator for the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. And we're joining Union County Wildlife Chapter here for a fantastic program with Debbie Foster. She's a Habitat Steward, ambassador of the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. She runs a great podcast, excellent gardener and naturalist. So just a few housekeeping things. If you do have a question, please just put it into the chat and we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. We'll make sure to get to all those questions at the end for those that are virtual. There's a handful of us joining in person tonight. And if you have any issues with audio or visual, please just put it in the chat today. Without further ado, I will let Miss Debbie Foster take it away.
Thanks for having me back again. I think this is my third or fourth time I've visited Union County Wildlife Chapter. I'm happy to be back again. Annie and I talked probably 6 months ago, at least, about possible topics, and what we came up with was attracting songbirds via accessories, I call them. So I call it also supersizing your wildlife habitats, because you can go basic or you can start really chipping away at doing things that encourage all kinds of things, not just songbirds, but all kinds of things to come to your yard. We will be focusing on birds today, but again, all this information applies for a lot of different things there. So what we're going to do really quickly is we're going to review the habitat requirements that we talked about, I think, at the first presentation I did here, and it's food. And I want you to understand food can be something that may already be present in your yard by natural elements, or it can be something you go to the store and buy. I've got examples of that with me today. Water is so important because everything can live longer without food than water, including us, right? So water is a key element of all wildlife habitats. Cover, which is defined as places to raise young or places to escape predators. All right. If we are hanging out in the open and there's a sniper, well, we really need the cover. Well, when think about hawks flying in to pick birds off of things with no cover in the yard. So we need that as well. Places to raise young, just like food, it can be natural that you've already got in your yard, or it can be provided via things like birdhouses. And then sustainable gardening practices, or sustainable practices in general. Everything we do, no matter how casual, no matter how minor, has some sort of a trickle-down effect. And I think it's really important that we start to recognize that and make some conscious, mindful decisions about what we do in our yard.
Keep going. I'm just going to try to get you in presenter mode.
So I came up with a quote that I just stumbled on. Where's the rest of it? All right, there we go. And I think this kind of says what I just said about everything has a consequence. So no man is an island. Human beings do so badly when they're isolated from others. And I would say others also includes nature, right? When we are isolated from nature, we are not mentally, physically, emotionally healthy. We need to be part of a community in order to thrive. And this was written by somebody, I think, back in the 1800s. So they recognize that then. We've forgotten it now. And then, so what we're going to do is we're going to work through each of those elements. I brought some examples of things with me tonight, and I'm not sure if the people online are going to be able to see these or not. I'll describe them for you. That's about the best I can do there. All right, so we're going to start with, you got anything for me yet? Just give us 1 second.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, technical.
Anybody have some magic words that you can wave over this?
I have a quick question.
Okay,
Are the birds not hungry right now?
Oh, the birds are very hungry right now.
I don't know what's wrong with one of my feeders.
I was gonna say, and I can tell you the rest of your question. Why are they eating the food at my feeders? In my yard, they're not going to the feeders because there's still a lot of natural food left. I have several huge beautyberry bushes, and those branches bounce up and down all day long as things fly in and fly out, grabbing those berries. I have left all of the spent seed heads on all of my pollinator plants, so they've got that they can use as well. I had buckeyes on the tree until just fairly recently, so they were going to that. They're going to my garden. You know,
Well,
they don't need us. We probably want to think they need us to give them food. They're smarter than we are, so they can find their own food most of the time.
okay.
So really, it benefits us to bring them in so that we can see them because we get to appreciate them more that way. My friend Laurie Horn, who owns Backyard in Massachusetts, panics about this time every single year. Because people come in and go, my birds aren't eating, I don't need any seed. I've stopped buying seed because they're just not eating. They are eating, they're just not eating what we're putting out. And they're taking up because those that are migrating really need to beef up to have the energy to migrate long distances. And almost all of our birds migrate somewhat. This is something that Tony Lombardino, who is a PhD from Cornell, and he worked with the Lab of Ornithology there, talks about everything moving just the least little bit. Maybe it's only a county away, but almost everything migrates to some degree. You know, we're more familiar with things like hummingbirds that migrate long distances, and some of our songbirds that migrate long distances. But even bluebirds just kind of bounce around a little bit, or robins bounce around a little bit. And so they need to store their energy in order to start making that trip. You know, before we go on a long trip, we probably eat a big breakfast and plan for stopping at lunch at Wendy's or whatever. We're looking ahead for that. The birds are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Great, that's good. I can see it now.
Go.
All right.
Keep going. I'm gonna try to get it to hide all this.
Okay. Well, they can't. Can they see it?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, so while he's at that, I want to talk about this slide because it illustrates exactly what I just said. If you look, 4 out of the 5 photos that I put up there have what? Natural food. Only one of them has man-provided food. I only bought the suet cake down here with this little pine. Pine warbler. So I had the buckeyes that I was talking about, and this was my first time actually seeing the tree filled with these, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And so I kept watching and watching, and then I saw a lot of woodpeckers go into that tree. So, and then they were gone like that. All of them, they must have knocked them down and gotten them off the ground because they were all gone. I couldn't find them anywhere in the yard. That was kind of interesting. That's one of the many blue or beautyberry bushes in my yard up in the top right, that bright purple, and they were covered. My guess is those must be a really high energy food for birds because they love this beautyberry bush. And this is dark picture. This is ironweed here, and the eastern swallowtails absolutely love it. You might find 10 on that bush in one siding. Dr. Melanchant, who was the director of the UNCC Botanical Gardens for 38 years, told me everybody needs ironwood. And if Dr. M ever said that, I was running, not walking, to buy whatever it was he was pointing to. So that's where that came from. And then on the other side, we've got a nice bumblebee who's mining some stuff there. So it's not just the birds, it's the birds, the bees, the insects, the pollinators. There's all kinds of stuff going on in our yards. But it's also a symbiotic relationship. You don't just say, I want goldfinches in my yard. If you get goldfinches in your yard, you're probably going to get a lot of the circle of life. It's not just a single thing. You might get things you want, and you might get things you don't want sometimes. But we do the best we can.
That's the
There.
best we
Can I
can
touch
do.
it? Am I?
Yeah. It's bigger for them now. We'll have to deal with the side in person, but that's the best I can do. We're good.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about feeders because that's where most people go to when they think about feeding birds. They don't think about going to plants, but native plants are the way to go, definitely.
Oh, a quick question about those blue, beauty berries. I know there's native and there's non-native,
That's it.
and is it, do they eat both or?
They might, I don't
They
know, I
might.
don't, but what we have known, what we've learned from research is that most of the non-native varieties don't provide the same nutritional amount of
Okay.
goodies that our natives do.
Yeah.
So, and you can tell the difference between the Japanese beauty berry and the American beauty berry because the color is slightly different. It's kind of a lighter pink color. They're smaller. The leaves are shaped differently.
That's the native?
That's the non-native.
Oh,
This was
non-native.
the native that I had.
Okay.
So, and I can't remember. Calicarpa americana for beauty berry.
That sounds right.
Okay, there you go. The what?
The Chinese is a non-native.
Yeah. If it's got Chinese or Japanese at the beginning of it, it's not native to here. So,
I was just wondering, I have one and I never have been able to figure out if it is or isn't. But
if it's about the color of Vicky's pink bag back there, it's gonna be the Chinese. If it's that vivid magenta color and big juicy
Yeah.
berries, that's our native. Okay.
Oh, I think I have.
All right,
one.
good. So it's important to take stock, to take inventory, to figure out what your goal is. And if you do this in a planned manner, you're gonna have a lot better success with this. Notice that I did this because I made this mistake myself. I just went whole hog and threw stuff out in the yard. Not the best plan. So do you have a goal? Are you trying to attract a particular bird? Like some people might say, well, I want cardinals, or I want goldfinches, or I want bluebirds. I've never heard anybody say, I hate bluebirds. Or you maybe want hummingbirds, okay? Figure out what you want because that's gonna direct where you go from there. Birds tend to eat specific food, okay? So if you want a goldfinch, you're gonna have to feed either sunflower hearts or niger thistle because that's what they eat, okay? Cardinals tend to eat a lot of safflower seeds and they eat a lot of black oil sunflower seeds. Hummingbirds eat nectar, except for when they're feeding their babies, when they're feeding them insects. Okay, so they're great mosquito hitters. And then, or maybe you're just looking for the greatest variety of species you can get, in which case we can say, okay, well, let's go ahead and figure out what we can put in our bird feeders that's going to get us the biggest bang for our buck. And it might be something like this mix here. This has safflower. Looks like it's got two different types of safflower and a sunflower. Out of the shell, it's got sunflower in the shell. It's got a few peanuts in there too. So this is a good quality blend that a lot of different birds would eat. Okay. You need to look at the size of the opening with feeders. So I brought these feeders with me today because I want you to see the difference. There's the feeder size here, the port, okay? It's about the size of my thumb, okay? If you put itty bitty seeds in there, like thistle seeds, guess what happens? They come pouring out and fall to the ground. So that's not the right feeder for that particular seed. You probably cannot see the openings in this one. They are that tiny. There's one right there. Just that little slit, see? This is made for the thistle or sunflower hearts because the birds that are going to eat those have this little beak that they can get in that slit. Okay, and they can get it out. So right food for right feeder. That's really, really, really important. And then you've got to make sure it's food that fits. Not all birds perch. Most people don't know that. Cardinals are not known for being perching birds. So they're not going to sit on a feeder like this to get food out of it. That's just not how they roll. They will come to tray feeders, hanging tray feeders and ground tray feeders, and they will eat off of those. You can put something out in a terracotta dish for them and they'll probably go get that off of a deck rail, but they're not going to be perching. And make sure when you put these feeders out, you think about it from the bird's perspective, but you also think about it from yours. You're probably not going to put bird feeders out in your yard where you can't see them. My favorite thing to do is hang out in my pajamas at the kitchen window and look and see what's going on in the backyard. If it's snowing, if it's raining, if it's hot, I don't worry about it. I can see the birds up my feeder because I positioned it. But I've also positioned it so that they can dart into cover. I'm not just leaving them hanging out there in the middle of the yard with no way to escape a hawk. So this is a little brown-headed nuthatch, if you don't know what this is. Kind of cool story behind this. We love bluebirds, as I said, and so everybody put up bluebird houses. Now, those populations had decreased because they used to build nests on fence posts, inside fence posts, and excavate a cavity. Well, we don't have a lot of farmland, we don't have a lot of fence posts, so they lost their nesting habitat. So everybody put up bluebird houses. Unfortunately, what we did without realizing it was going to be the result is we displaced the brown-headed nuthatch. And so Audubon about 10 years ago had an initiative where they said, can we put up 10,000 brown-headed nuthatch boxes in the state of North Carolina? How fast would it take us? And it went like that. What we know about the little brown-headed nuthatches and the bluebirds is if the bluebirds cannot get in the box, they'll let the brown-headed nuthatches use it. But if the hole's big enough for the bluebird to get in, say 2 boxes side by side, they'll use one, they'll chase everything out of the other one, including the brown-headed nuthatch. So the way around that is this little fancy device called an extruder plate. And you can change the diameter of the opening of your birdhouse simply by putting it on there. It's got 4 screws. And it will keep flying squirrels from gnawing your hole and making it a lot bigger. So it's got a lot of benefit. So again, we just have to think about the birds that we're trying to attract and understand how they're gonna go. I don't know about you, but I like deals. And so this company is called Aspects. They have started putting lifetime warranties on almost all their products. So you can buy a less expensive thing and buy it over and over and over and over again, or you can get something with a lifetime warranty and not have to worry about that. I can tell you in my yard, I have had some squirrels and raccoons chew the heck out of these things. Big deal. I took it back to the store and said, can I have another one, please? And I didn't have to pay for it.
What did you say it was called?
It's Aspects feeders. Yeah. Aspects. So great deal there. Some people live in HOAs. I live in a community that has an HOA. They're not real picky about it, but if you are in like an over 55 community or retirement community, sometimes they will say, we're not allowed to have bird feeders. And I say, well, why not? And he said, because they're messy and they don't want to mess. Okay, so there's a way around that. These come in all different diameters. And what they do is they attach to the bottom of a bird feeder so that anything that comes out of the port is captured in this plate. It does not go to the ground. Okay, so that's one thing that you can do if that's the case. The other,
the empty bag?
the birds, some of the birds will sit here and eat them when it comes out.
Oh.
The other thing that you can do is you can feed a 100% consumable food. So if you feed anything with shells in it, birds are going to crack those shells. They're probably going to drop them to the ground. Okay, so you're going to have some sort of a net there. Birds will look for their favorite food. So if you see them swiping their beak back and forth and at the bottom of the feeder in a tray, what they're doing is they're looking for their favorite. And of course, what isn't their favorite goes to the ground. And what comes to eat things that go to the ground, like seed that goes to you. Yeah, you maybe get rodents of some sort. And squirrel is a rodent, right? And then what comes after the rodents? Snakes. So we created this chain that we probably didn't mean to, and we can change it by a zero waste food. Sunflower hearts are 100% consumable, and they're a highly valued food source for almost all birds. So they're not going to be dumping these on the ground. They're going to be eating
Would you
these.
put those little tiny things in the feeder that has the big hole?
I would, yeah, because they can't get it out here. Now, there is, you can get these in several versions. So this is the largest, this is the complete seed. You can get them in little tiny chips that look almost like dust, and those.
Oh, and that's,
Yeah.
oh.
All right, so you just have to know
But
what you're trying
that's big enough that it's not scattered easily.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So there are ways around HOA things. I've been working recently with a retirement community on Chestnut Drive and Indian Trail, and another one out in Indian Land. And we just kind of listened to what they said, and then we figured out a way that everybody could have their needs met, including the wildlife. So that worked really well. I just threw up some examples of what I've been talking about, because I want you to see all of these varieties. This little chickadee, that's our Carolina chickadee, which is probably my favorite bird. They've got so much personality and such weird habits. He's got a little ball of suet in his beak there. And then of course we see our hummingbirds up there, which eat nectar until they're feeding their babies, and they're feeding them protein sources. Mealworms for the mockingbird up there. And this is just a pine tree with tons of cones on it and tons of seed in the cones. So some things we'll use that. This is our black oil sunflower seed. Really interested why this is so dark, because it was not this dark in my house at all. This fly-through feeder, which I kind of like, this guy has an amazing habitat, has all different types of things. He's got suet in there. He has the sunflower hearts in there. He has mix in there. So this is a smorgasbord buffet for any bird that wants to come on in here and get it. And this little downy woodpeckers at it. And then the bluebird has a worm that I did not provide that for him. He found it on his own to take and feed his babies, because they were right by that fence there.
Would squirrels be deterred by the little pieces that you're talking about? You know, I've never wanted to have an open feeder anywhere, because the squirrels will find, oh, I have one of those too.
Okay.
Yeah.
If this is properly sited, the squirrel can't make it work. But you have to put it where it's supposed to go. A squirrel will use its body weight to try to get into things, okay, and they're very athletic, so they can hang by one toenail and grab seed. But this will tell you the exact directions. You've got to put it about 8 to 10 feet away from anything that the squirrel can jump from or to. I'm talking from above.
Yeah.
I'm talking from a bush, from the ground. So putting baffles on our poles that we put feeders on would be a good thing, and this would be another good thing.
I like the look of an open feeder, because, you know, you'll see so many, but I can't figure anywhere to put anything.
Okay, but there's another trick for you, and I didn't bring it tonight.
Oh, another trick.
Squirrels are mammals. Squirrels are mammals. Birds are not mammals, okay? Birds have very few taste buds. Squirrels, as mammals, have a lot of taste buds. So you put in hot pepper, and you're gonna have to go back and reapply it if it rains. It's not gonna last all summer long. You can even buy this that already has hot pepper all over it, so you can do that. And most, I'm not gonna say all, most squirrels would not prefer that. You always get one that doesn't know the variety. I call them non-union squirrels. But most of the squirrels would be deterred by that. All right, so moving on from food to water. The biggest thing I can tell you about water is, well, don't be chintzy. All right, put as many water features in your yard as you can possibly think of. And they do not have to be expensive. I have bottoms to terracotta flower pots, or reservoirs that come with the pots, or the plastic ones. You can put those on the ground. You can put them on a stump. You can put them on a deck rail and put water in it. And you're providing water for a lot of different things. So you notice I talked about different heights, right? Because some of the things that might go into the water on the ground might be ground birds, like our towies, our thrushes. You might see some lizards, anoles, maybe a snake drinking out of it, okay? All kinds of things. But this is all one backyard right here. And what I absolutely love is, look at the heights. Okay, he's done exactly what I just said. He's got this beautiful big fountain, and the fountain has all these layers. Every layer is accessible by birds. He has made sure that's the case. So there's no deep water. He's got this great piece of driftwood there that the birds can perch on while they're bathing in a spray. He's used the top to a broken bird bath. This one, put it on the ground. Here's one that's sitting up off the ground. He gets the most amazing variety of birds in this backyard. I could have lived in this backyard when I went over there. He was getting some really good birds, and I wanted pictures for a calendar that I was shooting for. And so I spent hours in his backyard, just amazing. He had red-headed woodpeckers nesting in his yard. He gets tons of migrants through there every year, but it's because he's thought like the wildlife he's trying to attract, which is awesome. All right, so go with multiples, high, low, and in between. Keep it clean. We don't want to drink green, slimy water, neither does wildlife. So make sure you clean it out. And that's really important. Keep it liquid. Okay, even in the winter when it's below freezing, the wildlife, the birds still need to drink. Okay, they can't drink ice. So we have got to figure out a way to keep it liquid. They still bathe in the winter. They've got to do that to keep their feathers in good shape. And we have to provide them with water all year round. And the sound of running water attracts birds. I brought one of my favorite things here. This is called a dripper mister. Okay, it hooks on the side of your bird bath. You can adjust this to just go drip, drip, or you can do a spray, and the spray can be really strong. It can be very, very fine. It comes with a whole bunch of tubing. So you run it to your hose connector and just plug it in here. All right, uses very little water. So it's not wasteful of water, but it is a good way to, one, keep your bird bath a little cleaner because it's going to agitate the water as it's going. Two, attract a lot more birds. And three, deter mosquitoes from laying their eggs because they lay their eggs in stagnant water. This keeps the water moving just the least little bit. So it's a really good investment in your wildlife habitat. And then I said, keep it liquid, right? This is a fancy thing. I've got two. This is a heated bird bath. All right. So you plug this in the winter. There are some solar varieties, but this one you have to plug in. And if it gets below freezing, that's when it kicks on. It doesn't just run the whole time. But I have seen a few times when we've had snow and there's been snow piled up all around it, and the steam was coming off and the birds were just lined up like they were at a spa. It was awesome. All right, moving to cover. Covers how you escape predators. I joke sometimes when I do these presentations that if I said, you just won a very expensive surf and turf dinner, a chef will cook it for you personally to your liking. There is fine wine that is being served, and the absolute best dessert you've ever dreamed of. Would you like this? Free? You just won this. People would go, yeah. Sorry, it's over in Pineville by that sewage treatment plant. You're going to be sitting out there, you know, but we'll put a nice tablecloth out there. Not so appealing now, right? So we need to think about that from our bird standpoint. You can set up all these beautiful feeders and this great food, but if they don't have a place to escape predators like this gorgeous hawk there, kind of risky, not so much fun. All right. So we need to think like whatever we're trying to attract and what we're trying to protect as well. There are so many different kinds of covers, and we only think of trees. That's all we think about when we think about cover. So I threw a tree in there. But did you think about ground cover plants as a place for cover? How about leaf litter? If you have leaves laying on the ground in your yard, I challenge you to go and just hang out somewhere nearby and listen. Do you hear scratching going on? Look and see what's making that scratching noise, and you're going to see probably a towhee, okay, an eastern towhee, could be brown thrasher as well. You're going to see birds that are scratching through that leaf litter because it provides cover for some of their food sources. All right, so all interrelated again, which we said earlier. Plants, shrubs, bushes, trees of different heights, okay? So we can have smaller trees like our dogwood. We can have massive trees like a white oak, which is 100 feet tall. We can have trees that keep their leaves and trees that lose their leaves. So all of these things provide layers. There was a wonderful man named Craig Wyant who died several years ago. And he said, when he starts doing this, he literally gets on his belly on the ground to see what he can see from that perspective. And then he addresses that. And then he gets up on his knees. What can I see there? And he addresses that and he just works the layers up. So I started thinking like that. I've attracted more birds to my yard because there's plenty of places for them to hang out and things for them to do when they're there. Okay, places to raise young. This is you can probably tell from the ears, even though again, it's dark. This is a great horned owl that somebody called me to come and see in her yard. It was a long ways away, but we could see the ears. We knew that the eggs would hatch, but we didn't get to see the young, but it's pretty cool to see her hanging out and watching, and the mate was nearby. That's better, thank you. So places to raise young. It's gonna be different for different birds, right? If we have cardinals, they will never use a nest box. They're gonna go into some sort of a nest. If we have woodpeckers, they're gonna be in a cavity in the tree. They don't use nest boxes. If we have hummingbirds, they're gonna build teensy little nests that they're gonna attach in the crook of branches that are usually hanging out over water. So look around your bird bath to see if maybe that's where the hummingbird goes when they come and go 178,000 times a day. So know what you're trying to attract and where they would nest, and that's when you start working that variable. Shrubs, trees, the ground. Did you know that we have some birds that lay their eggs flat on the ground? They do not nest, okay? A good example of this is a killdeer. Their eggs look a lot like just plain old gravel. I was at CPCC when I was teaching out there at the main campus, and I don't know why I was walking around the lake one day, but I was, and a killdeer went darting out, and they have a unique thing that they do. They drag their wing looking like they're hurt, and they make their vocalization, which sounds just like, I thought, oh, there's something around here that he's trying to draw me away from, because that's what they do. And I stumbled on the nest by sheer luck, because it was so well camouflaged that it was a miracle I found it. I went into the security office and said, we have a killdeer site on the property. Can we put up cones? Well, all he heard was we have killdeer. And he said, who killed the deer? And he's pulling his bullet out and put it in his stone like Barney Fife and running for the door. I'm like, no, killdeer's a bird. Birdhouses, yeah, some use birdhouses. You've got to know what size opening they prefer. It might be anything from slightly under 1 inch to slightly over 1.5 inches, or for a barred owl, it's more like 8 inches. So you've got to know what the individual requirements are. Size of the opener, as I said. And competition for real estate. Put 2 bluebird houses side by side where they can see one another. All you're going to get is fights. Okay. Put one in your front yard and one in your backyard, or use that extruder plate and turn it into something that a smaller bird could use. And that way they will peacefully coexist. So here are some examples. This little bluebird is in a bluebird box. It's one of those that has a flip up side. So I check them not very frequently because I don't want to bother them, but I will check in about once a week or so. And you can see this little guy's ready to go. He's just about fully feathered. He probably left that nest. Or a black snake got him, because I have had a black snake that has been figuring out how to get past that backhoe. I've got to work on that to figure out how he's doing that. That little tiny, that's a little Carolina wren house there. Yeah, I brought that one with me. It's cute just because it's so small. I would tell you, get houses that you can easily clean. Some of them have flip up ports. That's much easier to do. You can even get some that have like a two-way mirror on the back, so you can mount them on your window and you get to see everything going on in that house. There's a larger house, and I want you to look and see the cover is to the back on this house. Okay, most birds would prefer that in front of the house it's an open area. The back of the house it's more covered, but you don't want to put the cover touching the birdhouse, because that does allow black snakes to shimmy on up and access the birdhouse. This is simply a log over at Lansford State Canal that I thought was interesting, and I don't know that any bird would use it, but it's beautiful cover. Something would probably use that. Skunks. Yeah. Who knows? I saw a brown thrasher, which is one of my favorite birds, coming and going and coming and going and coming and going at my neighbor's house next door into her gardenia bushes. Well, no, that's weird. What's he doing over there? And so I just waited and watched. And I found the nest, and it was pretty deep in this this bush, but there she was. I think she had 4 eggs, if I remember correctly. And she successfully raised her brood there, so it was fascinating to watch. I learned something new because here I am with my little long lens on the camera and I'm trying to just move a leaf out of the way because it'll focus on the leaf instead of the bird. And she started making this clattering sound with her beak. I'm pretty sure it was, you better back off or else. And then, of course, we have squirrels that build nests like this all over everywhere. A lot of birds don't usually. Robins make messy nests. It's been my experience that they look like they won't hold together. Mourning doves kind of do the same thing, but they're going to build in trees or shrubs too. And then this I loved, sustainable gardening practices. So when we want to use native plants, we need to think about a couple of things. Where did the native plant come from and how's it been treated? So if we buy a native tree, but it's been raised in upstate New York, that tree is going to have a hard time surviving here because that zone is so different from New York to here. So you need to find out where the plant's coming from. And then the other thing is what's been done to that plant. Everybody wants pristine plants. We want no evidence that anything in our yard is eating or chewing on the leaves. You know, we don't want that. That's not nice. It's not pretty, but that is nature. It means everything eats something else as a food source. So we should welcome seeing chewed leaves. That's a good sign, okay? But if those plants are treated with neonicotinoids, which is a chemical that comes from tobacco, then you may not see any chewed leaves, and you want to make sure you look for that because that's not a good sign. Okay, it's okay for them to eat some of our leaves. Okay, we don't need all of the leaves. They don't kill the plants by eating the leaves, and they're not going to completely infest it. It's just part of the cycle of life. Coming on the next step on my soapbox is the idea of the mosquito spray companies. I've talked to 3 entomologists at this point, okay, and I asked all 3 the same question. Is it true what they're saying that the sprays that are being used only kill mosquitoes? And they said, absolutely not. It kills any insect it comes into contact. Okay, is that a problem? Depends. What eats insects? Birds, okay. Yeah, now it's a problem to me. Now I have a problem with this. So I am constantly kind of pushing this envelope a little bit. I've got some of my neighbors who think that the mosquitoes would be so big they just fly away with the whole family if they didn't have this stuff doused. I saw 2 monarch butterflies this year in my yard, and I'm thrilled because I saw none last year. But the first one I saw was flying so erratically. Now, if you ever start trying to track a butterfly, it's so hard. They zig and they zag. This one was more like having seizures in between the zigging and zagging. I thought, what is going on here? Went to get the mail, and there's the mosquito truck 2 doors down. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying it's a possibility. Okay, because again, they don't discriminate. It's a non-discriminatory insecticide. So this sustainable gardening practices thing from the American Bird Conservancy. Neonics are sprayed on crops, injected into trees, or coated onto the seed. Now, the seed may fall to the ground, right? As we've said, sometimes with birds just dumping it out. A single coated seed can kill a songbird. 1 coated seed. Neonics in the seed coating spread throughout the plant, so that's the whole plant, systemic, so it goes down into the roots of the plant as well. Bees pick up neonics from pollen and nectar. Well, we know that we need our bees to eat, so that could be a problem, right? Seed fragments, dust, and sprays spread neonics into soils and wetlands. Wetlands are some of our most fragile habitats that we have, and neonics can poison or kill off birds' food supplies. So you can see how this is not a good thing, and we need to ask. Before we bring plants into our yard, we need to ask. I love shopping at the Matthews Farmers Market because I know I don't have to worry about anything that's been sprayed with neonicotinoids or neonics there. So that's great. Rat poison is another thing we need to be aware of because that poisons its way right up the food chain too. I bet you see a lot of owls that you pick up from rat poisoning. Vicki?
No, but mine generally hit my car.
Okay, yeah. All right, so just thinking, again, thinking down the food chain, thinking through the whole process there. And here are Save Your Sanity recommendations, because I found these most helpful. You start simply, one feeder, one food, and you decide, what am I trying to attract? Biggest number or single thing? All right, that directs you to what kind of feeder to pick and what kind of food to pick. I went to our local bird store when I moved to Charlotte 27 years ago and said, let's start feeding the birds. He said, great, what do you want? I said, I don't know. I don't have a clue. I don't want squirrels. And he said, okay, let's feed goldfinches. I said, I don't have any goldfinches. He said, because you haven't been feeding the goldfinches. I said, oh, okay. So he sold me this type of seed. He sold me the thistle, had goldfinches. Worked really well. I went back and said, let's do this again. What's next? What can I do? And he said, how about cardinals? Okay, why do I feed the cardinals? So he recommended Blackwell sunflower and safflower. And it just started going just rolling down the hill from that point. It's so cool to see all of the stuff I was able to do. So what I advise is start with a pole system. A pole system is really easy to put in the ground. Some of them have an inverted U shape, and you just stomp it into the ground. And it goes down deep enough that it's really stable. You don't have to worry about it blowing over in wind. Squirrels can't pull it down, whatever. Or some of them have these curly Q things on it. You screw it into the ground. That works really well too. You don't assemble these other than sliding one pole into a sleeve and another pole into that one, depending on how high you want it. It's easy and fast. Instant results. If you go and get it in 15 minutes, you can have it installed in your yard. So love that instant gratification. And one of my favorite things is I like to see things that can either one, be accessorized, or two, we can add to. So if you get a pole system and you only get one hook, and you get one feeder and one food, next gift giving occasion, ask for another hook and another feeder and another food, okay? You can get 4 at a time on there, and then you can get some additions for 4 more. So you could have a whole feeder system built over time that really works well for you. Find products, that cut down on labor. So I brought some of these. This one is a bird bath protection, and you just put a few, I think it's a capful, in a bird bath. It helps keep it clean, okay, so it will stay cleaner longer. This does not mean it will stay clean all summer long without any help. You're still gonna have to scrub that feeder from time to time. Diluted bleach, sometimes a scrub brush, and blast it with the hose. And sometimes I just blast it with the hose. If my feeder's not very dirty, I can do that and get away with it. So that's one very helpful thing. This I love. This is nectar mix. Okay, all you gotta do is add water, and if you want to, you can put it in a shaker like this. Just shake it up and put this in the refrigerator. And so now you have, what is it, 16 ounces if you want to make the whole thing of nectar for hummingbirds. No muss, no fuss. It does not have red food dye, because we should not be putting red food dye in our hummingbird nectar. It's not needed. Think about it. All those hummingbird feeders are what color? Red. Okay, that's what's going to attract them, not the food. And we can actually harm them by putting red dye.
Why would you not just get regular white granulated sugar?
Because people are into instant gratification and no labor, but yes, if you want to make your own, you can use warm water. They don't even say you have to boil it anymore. And it's 4 parts water to 1 part sugar. And you can do it that way. It'll be cheaper to do it that way, but again, we're instant gratification. This is called Feeder Fresh, and it's a product that you put in your feeders to help keep them clean longer. Does not bother the birds. It's not harmful to the birds. So you can put that in there and not have to scrub those feeders quite as often. You do still have to scrub your feeders, by the way. This is something we talked about on the Backyard Naturalist podcast. Mosquitoes, again, lay their eggs in stagnant water. They've got a life span of about 2 to 3 days. So that fast, they can go from laying eggs to mosquitoes everywhere, and then they start repeating the process. This puts a film on top of the water that changes the tensile strength of the water so that the mosquitoes can't land on the water, they sink. Okay, so there's no way they can lay their eggs there. Does not harm the birds. Pretty smart, right? I know, right? And it just takes a little, you just spray it a little bit, and that's it.
Is it a surfactant?
It probably is some sort of a surfactant, I would think, yeah. So have a look, you know, that's kind of cool. One last thing, a couple of things. I love these, I should have talked about this under cover. This is called a roosting box. When it's cold, birds will clump together to conserve body heat. You might see 6 or 8 bluebirds in a house doing that. And this, these are so cheap, maybe $10, no, $8, okay? I put these all over my yard so that I can provide places for the birds to get in cold weather. And then
And they really will?
they really will. And it's really hard, straw of some sort. And I've only replaced one, and I bet that thing was 15 years old when I replaced it. So it really does hold up. It's a good investment. So there's that. You want to see birds at your kitchen window when you're wearing your pajamas? Here's a feeder that attaches with suction cups. So this is awesome. I think that's all the stuff I brought with me. And this is, I figured, now you can just go forth and attract birds, you know, and when you start seeing things that you haven't seen in your yard before, please send me an email and let me know about it. Text me, whatever. I would love to hear about it. Do we have questions?
Don't see any questions in the chat right this minute.
Wow.
What about in the audience?
Okay.
I did have a question about using fruit and what are the best fruits to attract any songbird?
That's a good question. I almost never put out fruit, but if I were to put out fruit, I would put out oranges and I would slice them in half. The Baltimore Orioles are likely to come for that. I might even scoop out some of the orange and put grape jelly in there to sweeten the deal, literally and figuratively. If you plant blueberries, odds are pretty, or blackberries or figs, odds are pretty good the birds will help themselves to some of it. I don't happen to have any fruit planted in my yard, so I haven't experienced that. Some of the mixes have some fruit in it. They'll have black wool sunflower seeds and maybe some peanuts, and then they'll have some dried fruits as well. It's interesting. And by the way, I want you to look at what high quality foods these are, okay? If you go to a big box store, including the grocery store, and you buy a bag of seed, let's say it's 50 pounds and it's $10. What? Guess what? You're getting a bunch of crap. Just exactly what? It's millet and red honeylow and roast corn. Yeah, so they dump it out on the ground. And then you got a whole, that one's not better. Yeah, so we think we're getting a deal. We're not getting a deal. We're creating a nightmare maintenance for ourselves. And the birds don't eat most of it, so it's not such a good deal. It's not a good waste.
You know what I was thinking when you were talking about the shells from the sunflower seeds? And I know that probably attracts not just snakes, mice and rats but the doves, because doves, as far as I know, doves do not go up on a feeder and eat it.
Two in my yard, which surprised the heck
do?
out of me. Yeah,
But-
they will, the hanging tray feeder.
Oh,
a
yeah, train feeder. Well, see, my doves come under
Yep.
the
So
leftovers.
they're getting what's left over, so yeah, hopefully they're getting it all.
Yeah,
Because we never know, right?
okay.
All right.
You didn't mention anything about suet, but what are your thoughts on feeding with suet?
Yeah, I feed suet more often in the cold weather than in anything else because it's high energy food. But I will also deliberately feed some sort of suet to attract something. This is a blend called Bugs and Nuts. It's like marketing for birds, right? Bugs and Nuts. What's not to love about that? And then this one is a woodpecker favorite. So they've got a variety. I mean, honest to goodness, this looks like it's good enough to snack on.
Yeah, seriously.
Awesome. And then the other one is a suet, and it's got log jam, or it's a peanut butter suet. And it comes in logs that you can put in particular feeders. I just lay these in my hanging grape and not mess with that. You can make your own suet. You can. It's a giant pain in the neck. Now, this is $2.99, okay? This is more expensive because it's the premium bug and nuts and it's $4. This one is $3.55. It's the biggest mess to make suet. You can do it, you can put it in the freezer, you will have suet for a while. I'm just not that industrious. So I go to a large store and buy this suet. That's easier. In the summer, if you want to put out suet in the summer, you will find that almost all varieties are going to melt and or turn rancid in extreme heat. There is a no melt variety now. I don't know what the parameters are. Is it good up to 90 degrees or up to 100? I don't know.
Well, when my birds are not very hungry, the suet often gets a black mold on it.
Yep, and you need to pitch
How
it.
dangerous is that?
I don't know the specific answer to that, but I would say anything that eats black mold is going to get sick. So I watch for that. That's why I don't feed the suet in the summer. You don't have that happen in the winter unless it's been out.
Well, one side that they eat off of seems to be okay, but it's that other side that they don't get to. But, yeah, I hate to be wasteful, but again, I don't want sick birds.
You know, I saw a picture maybe last year of a hummingbird that had spores all over its tongue, and the spores were from eating or drinking nectar that had been had red food I put in it. And so the spores were like sores on the tongue. The hummingbird could not retract its tongue anymore. So therefore it starved to death. So that's my parameter for going, is that black mold on that? Because if it is, it's going in the trash. Okay. Or, you know, and if it's only half of it, what you might do is cut that block in half to begin with and just put half out, and when it's done, put the other half out. And there's always ways around this stuff. We just have to be a little more aware of what's and proactive about what's going in the yard, but we get paid off for it, right? We are paid handsomely for anything we do to create habitat for wildlife, regardless of what the habitat is. I joke all the time and say, we could make a habitat for snakes, and people run screaming from the roof. And you're not gonna get the birds, just like I said, not just the birds, because it's all part of that food chain. All right, you're gonna get some of everything, but that's okay. You get to watch that too. I was very disappointed this year when I knew I had 5 baby bluebirds in the box, and I knew they were getting ready. Close to fledging, and so I thought I'm gonna just check one. I looked at that so carefully, with 5 in the box, they were squashed in there, so I didn't want to open it up all the way and have them go tumbling to the ground. So I'm lifting it, saw a bluebird, closed it. Thought a minute. Didn't really look like a bluebird, so I opened it up, and it was the black ground snake. And he had gotten past the baffle. I don't know how he did, because the baffle's one of those big tube baffles. There was nothing nearby that he could have accessed coming from to. So I don't know how he got in there. But he had eaten all of the babies. And so I was really upset. Well, that's what his food source is. So I was not going to do anything to harm him. I did get a stick and said, you cannot be in here, buddy, and scooped him out and took him to another place in the yard. I'm sure he listened to me, right? But those are good snakes. I would not kill the snake. Okay, I would not do that.
They're incredible climbers, like
Up in
doesn't
trees.
surprise me that they can get around with baffles, because sometimes you get 7-8 feet long, they can stretch up, they can hook with their scales on their belly, and yeah, they're gonna get into your birdhouse even if you try.
Yeah, and if you put your birdhouse just on a tree,
Yeah.
that's fine, that's your choice. If you want to make sure that those birds get to the fledging stage, probably not a great choice, because it's just food for the snake. He's gonna find it, and he's gonna do what we're saying the birds do. They eat, okay? And that's gonna be a problem. Now, once those birds get to the ground, once they fledge, they're pretty much on their own at that point. They don't fly at that point. They haven't learned to fly. So they're on the ground, and they're pretty much helpless on the ground until they hide. So the parents will put them in heavy cover, another reason to have cover in your yard. Then they'll start working on the flight, but they're still very, very delicate. My husband cut the grass one year And he got all 4 baby bluebirds, and I was sick. But
Oh.
so the next year, I made sure that I told him, please don't cut the grass this weekend. Looks like those baby bluebirds are ready to fledge, so leave it alone, because you know, it's good for them to hide in the taller grass. That makes sense, right? Not if the lawnmower's going over it.
Wow. How long is it that they can't fly? How long does it take them once they fledge? About how long?
A week or 10 days, what do you think?
From when they hatch to when they.
When they hatch or when they fledge?
No, when they fledge and they're helpless on the ground.
Oh, yeah. I'm not, I'm sure it's a range,
Yeah.
that sounds great. They can't have it be too long because,
Yeah.
all the risk,
At all.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not helpless, they're almost completely feathered, and they can hop and walk and run.
Yeah.
They're a little klutzy, but.
And they can hop and hide.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the parents are probably gonna be saying,
Oh,
over there.
Because
because they're still feeding them. So.
Oh, didn't think about that.
They're helpless in that aspect, but the parents are trained.
That's what's great about being in your own bluebird house, because you can observe and you can watch the time that it takes from when they fledge to when they get off on their own, is it 5 days or 8 days
A
or.
friend of mine who lives on the Greenway in Matthews put up an owl box, and he put it up in a terrible place and nothing happened for 8 years. Okay, it rotted and fell down. So we went and got another owl box, thought about it. Decided, the most convenient place for him was to put it at the apex of the garage, looking across the Greenway Bridge into the woods. It should not have been an ideal spot for the owls, but he has had owls the last 5 years in that box. And he can actually tell you exactly when he starts hearing particular sounds, they know what's going on in that box. And then they can tell when the babies have hatched because they hear different sounds. They start to see the parents bringing in the food. He knows how many weeks it's going to be from the eggs being laid to the hatching. And from the hatching to the branching, which is when they come out of the box and practice flapping their little wings on the top of his roof. And from that to being able to take off. And he knows exactly how long they stay in the area. I mean, he's a wildlife biologist, so he's documented all this stuff. The funny thing is to see how disconnected we can be from nature, because there have been people out on the Greenway when I'm walking going, did you see the eagle? No, let's talk. Or they think it's a hawk. I mean, it's just but once they figure it out, once you tell them, they're fascinated. So he converts people every year by having this. It's really cool. Wow. Yeah. But it's like, you hear all these things about the perfect place. Well, that didn't work for him. And he said, let's just try this. It's convenient. And it did. And I said, why did you put it at that height? He said, because it was the tallest ladder I had. Okay.
Yeah. I grow African violets, and they say you cannot, grow them in water. Well, you can root the little leaves, but I grow them in water and they love it.
Those people,
They
have a lot of misinformation. I am, the reason I give my certifications at the beginning of all of my presentations is because I want people to be able to judge, am I a credible source on this particular topic? I am also a certified avian trainer and a parrot behavior consultant. So when I teach those classes, I give different credentials because, again, they are all over Facebook giving this information. So I'm just, judge for yourself is what I tell people.
Yeah. I mean, we have to do that in general for everything.
You should.
When you Google something, I've been really interested in certain things and all the contradictions. It's like, who do you believe?
Right. You start asking questions. What's their education? What's their experience? What's the date on that article?
Who's paying for that?
Is what?
Who's paying for that?
Yeah, that too. Do they have anything to gain from it? Yeah, lots of good questions to ask before we weigh that information.
Right.
Gosh. Well, can anybody tell me, let me think. Give me 4 birds that are in this area that have yellow on them. Raise your hand if you come up with it. Oh, I know, I'm not gonna give this away just for a toss-up question. Hmm,
I know the answer, but
I
think
bet.
I can think of 2.
Wow, 4, I'm greedy.
Come on, Helena.
Nothing? I can see smoke coming out of your ears back there. You're thinking so hard.
I can see him and I'm drawing a blank on the name. I'm never good with birds.
Okay, well, what's your 2? Tell me your 2.
Oh, the goldfinch
Uh-huh.
and, oh, and.
What
plus-
kind of warbler? That's a wide.
Yeah,
There's the yellow rump warbler, yeah.
The other one though, I was thinking would be a woodpecker. No?
Sure, a northern flicker has some yellow, I guess, so I would take that.
Oh, yeah.
A pine warbler would also have, a cedar waxwing would also have,
Oh,
so, yeah, I'm going to give you.
I haven't studied my bird book lately.
For your yard.
Yeah. Your white legged sparrows viewing out the males. But is it just the males that have the white right behind the nape, like right behind the beak?
White-throated sparrow.
Yeah, they're one of my favorites. Yeah.
They've been around, I just didn't.
Oh.
Rental life story exciting. All right, give me 4 different types of woodpeckers that we have in this area. Oh.
Oh, I've seen it pileated.
Okay, you don't get to vote again.
That's
That's awesome. I have a picture that I took that appeared in the Breeding Birds Atlas for Mecklenburg County of affiliated woodpecker. I was so thrilled. All right, so she gave you one answer, affiliated,
Down.
Downy.
Downy.
Red.
red belly,
Red belly.
and red head. All right, you're gonna play it. Help me come up with one more.
One more question.
More question.
Name. So. The smallest owl species that we have in
Here.
the Piedmont. The smallest species of owl.
And I'll give you a hint. I hear from he's a master falconer and a wildlife educator that you have these in the Monroe area. That's what I hear. I have not seen it myself. But I would trust him to identify them.
Oh, wow. I know there are barn owls.
Screech owl.
Yep.
You want to give this, you may give this to somebody else who hasn't won yet. Who would you like to give it to? Okay. You were thinking real hard. I'm gonna do the this is smallest in this area, but I'll tell you this, I just think they're so cute, they're so teeny, they're precious.
It's that guy right there.
Oh, yeah, that's straight down, yes. Did you know that these guys are wickedly efficient hunters and that they will jump on cardinals who are sleeping in bushes and they just. Why do you say cardinal? Take a cardinal. They said it's terrifying.
I had something, a couple years ago, I had a cardinal singing on my fence. And I was watching it, it wasn't that far away, and all of a sudden something came and went. Cardinal gone.
Probably troopers are sharp to they're ambushed predators.
It wasn't very big, whatever it was, cause I didn't see it.
Mhm.
I mean, I was watching
They,
it and it was.
and then they.
You see the feathers?
In my yard, I would frequently find a stripe with no mourning doves. And I'm not a big fan of those, because I thought they were really sweet, they're just sweet bullies, they can't get everything, they take squirrels and rabbits and other birds. So when I find a bunch of gray feathers, I'm like, eh. I'll say that when I'm being recorded. That's coming out tonight.
Yeah. I'll tell him.
Yeah, hey, they just all the goodies.
There you go.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. The recording will go out in an email next week, so I'll follow up with that. If y'all don't have any questions, y'all have a wonderful night.